Hey, welcome back. My name is Dino. This video is on the power of metaphor. As always, I normally, almost always, like to start off with a definition to set the terms for the debate, although I'm speaking alone, so this is probably not a debate. Definition, or this is more about the essential quality of what a metaphor is. This is from George Lakoff, and is iconic metaphors we live by. The essence of metaphor is understanding and experiencing one kind of thing in terms of another. So from this, the reason I'm talking about this is that because of this, metaphors are really useful for discussing abstract ideas. You understand one thing really well, and the abstract thing is the thing that you don't know, so you use the metaphor to communicate that. I'll give you an example, or I'm going to ask you really briefly and then see if you know what I'm getting at, and then I'll give you the example. What is one of the most famous metaphors for environmentalism? Think for a second, what do you think that might be? I'm saying it is, and this is one for metaphors for environmentalism that I think is really popular and useful, is the carbon footprint. You see these three different metaphors here, or three different images to show the metaphor of the carbon footprint, done in very, I think they're really quite beautiful ways. However, the problem with metaphors, it's like any type of sign that's sort of fixed to a specific era, the original meaning of the metaphor may not reflect changing situations. So this is assuming that you're into environmentalism and you believe in that cause. I would make the contrast between those images that you saw that were very friendly and green and very hopeful. On the left is a snowshoe, and I would say instead maybe the carbon footprint isn't a small footprint, but it's bigger, on a snowshoe, it uses the wood and the netting to amplify the size of your foot so you can tread on the snow. So it's like showing that the footprint is actually stronger and bigger than what we think it is. And then on the right is some cleats, and you see the cleats on the bottom, and how if you were using that footprint on the wrong field, it could completely rip it up. So it's like talking about the idea that these are communicating that maybe the carbon footprint was too narrow, and maybe we need to have more of an aggressive metaphor to sort of show what's going on. I'm going to talk about metaphors in terms of conceptual systems. So this is another quote from Lakoff. But our conceptual system is not something we are normally aware of. In most of the little things we do every day, we simply think and act more or less automatically along certain lines. Again, this is from Lakoff. For example, I'll give you an example, like a simple one, like a metaphor. What is your path to work or to school or to somewhere important from your home? When you think about it maybe the first couple of times you do it, and then over a pretty short period of time, you think less about the actual mechanics of getting somewhere, and you're just kind of going on sort of an autopilot. And sort of this sort of shows what I'm saying about conceptual systems here. And then another one is, again, this is something, the next image I'm going to show you is going to show you how our conceptual system is something we're not aware of, but can have more of an impact on things. So I would say, what is worth more? A piece of art on the frame in the left, or a piece of art on the frame in the right? I would expect most of you to say the one on the left, because it looks like it's gilded and it's more intricate and stuff. And so this is sort of showing that we, so say if the exact art is the exact same size, it's the exact same piece of art on both of these things, we might think that the one shown in the frame on the left is more valuable and worth more than the one on the right. So it's like we're really looking at the artwork. We're not so much, unless you're really into frames, you're not thinking about the frame so much. And so kind of this again shows that we're not often thinking about the frames we're existing within. I'm going to talk about metaphor being used, and some of it's my use in educational settings. These are some metaphors I've used in my classes. I would say when people use technology, it's often we're a lobster in increasingly hot water, and the hot water is the temperature of water is our immersion in these technological meetings. We often don't think about them so much, and then we don't think about that, but we're using them more and more and more. Another one I use is based on Edgar Allan Poe's work on the Maelstrom. And it's I would say again, in technology, we're in this increasingly fast maelstrom that we're sort of stuck within, where we're being pulled down by it. And there's when we're there, within the maelstrom, there's like technological devices all around us, and it's like it's spinning continuously. We can't get out of it. Another one is learning as a Jenga tower. So the idea would be like learning is like it's structured like a tower, and the ideas would be blocks. So that's one way to think about it, where you put things together and eventually creates a tower. And then childhood as a kid's storybook, where a lot of people think about learning in a very nostalgic way. Like they think about it like, oh, like when I was a kid, it was very friendly. I had a teacher that I liked a lot. We played on the swings. We go out in the fields and enjoy ourselves. And then I found the contrast would be more during the Zoom learning era during COVID, when parents, when they, instead of dropping your kid off at school, picking them up and seeing how happy they look at the beginning and end of the day, when you actually see some of the nuts and bolts of what goes on in learning, it can be a little bit less storybook-like. I'll talk about finally about some dangers of metaphors. There can be unknown parts of the metaphor. So if you like, for me to sort of talk to a group of people and talk about Jenga as being a way to think about learning and the structure of learning, you have to actually know what a Jenga is, otherwise you wouldn't understand the metaphor at all. So I'd say Jenga and you'd be like, I don't know what that is, so we wouldn't understand the underlying metaphor. There can be poor relationships within the metaphor. So if you're comparing two things and these things are too dissimilar, or they just don't relate very well, the metaphor is not very good. Like the better that the metaphor relates to the two entities, the better it is. Also, the metaphor can be too simple. Think about Jenga. It really is just a bunch of blocks. It's really not a learning system. It's just that the metaphor is one way to communicate what goes on in learning. And then finally, what are the broader implications of a metaphor? If you think of like the brain and the things that you learn as like bits and bits and megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes that you put into a hard drive, that's fine. Like you can make that metaphor, and that's somewhat understandable. But it also takes away from some of the more beautiful parts of learning. So it's like, you can say that, but do we really want to think of learning as just being like you just put stuff in the old head hard drive and that's learning? It seems a bit impoverished. That was the power of metaphor. My name's Dino. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to like this video. Please feel free to comment on some of the examples I use, like the carbon footprint. Do you use metaphors on a daily basis? If not, how do you communicate abstract ideas? That'd be really interesting if you could add how you could communicate abstract ideas. What do you think are some of the benefits of using metaphors? What are some of the dangers? Finally, if you like this type of video, please feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want to see similar types of content. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.